Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. I'm the Magi, and last time we got together to talk about Magic the Gathering Online's platform, we discussed the entry-level economy where you're first trying to convert those new player points into more useful assets. And today we are going to take up where we left off and talk about the second stage of the economy where you start converting your play points into digital assets to grow your collection and your available modes of play within the platform. But before we get into all that, take just a moment to like, comment, and subscribe because that kind of thing really keeps this boat moving. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. One of the major distinctions that I brought up in that video was that the online economy was very different from the arena platform economy, in that arena gives you a lot of value just for essentially showing up and trying, whereas the MTG online economy is all about winning. If you aren't winning the events that you're entering, you are not advancing your economy. And in fact, in most cases, you are probably bleeding yourself dry. Now, like I said at the beginning, this video is assuming that you have already converted your new player points, hopefully into a large amount of play points. Every account that does the upgrade, I believe, starts with 60. And the goal of this video is to show you how to convert those play points into digital assets, prize support for various events, which can either be used to further your economy on that account or transferred to another account through the trade mechanisms. Now, at any given time, there are a ton of varied events going on MTG Online. I'm not going to attempt to cover them all, and of course, they change from time to time too. So always keep an eye out, do your own research, know what's going on at any given time. And of course, if you have questions, drop a comment on the video and I'll see if we can try and address that together. What I am going to do in this video is talk about the most common and accessible types of events that you use play points for and how to best utilize those for your benefit. All right, so first up, we've got draft leagues, which is exactly what it sounds like. You draft a deck by opening 3 booster packs and selecting a card, passing to your left, passing to your right, etc., etc. The idea here is you get to keep the cards that you drafted for your deck, plus winning gets you more resources. Unfortunately, if you get 0 or 1 win, you get no additional resources. So think of that as basically 40 play points to have drafted 1 booster pack. Moving from there, if you do get 2 wins, you get an additional 3 boosters added to your collection. Those are unopened boosters, by the way. And of course, if you go 3 for 3, you get 7 boosters added to your collection, which can or may not need to open later. The other limited format, of course, is sealed. And here the math goes exactly the same. For sealed, you don't draft, but you open 6 boosters and you build a deck from those resources. So your total play points is 240. Again, that just breaks down to about 40 play points per booster. Here, again, we are going to play now 5 games. On 0, 1, or 2 wins, you get nothing additional, but you do get to keep the cards that you opened out of those boosters. Where it gets interesting is at 3 wins, where you win 120 play points, so half your entry fee back and an additional booster. At 4, you get your full entry of 240 play points back, plus another 4 boosters. And at a perfect 5 wins, you get 360 play points, so a 50% bonus. You also get an additional 8 boosters. On both of these styles of limited events, there are also options at higher rates of win to collect online championship series points that can then be used to enter exclusive qualified events. They don't necessarily have a value because you can't sell them, but of course, if you are very competitive, this paves the road for higher levels of play. The biggest potential problem with doing limited style events on the online client is the fact that the items that you're drafting, opening, etc., and the prize support that you receive most directly supports standard constructed play. And I'm going to be frank, I think if you want to play standard, MTG Online is not the place to do it. Arena is a much better client to free-to-play if standard is your primary interest, because these cards do not directly support older formats very often. It does occasionally happen, but not on the same scale that these events are supporting standard constructed play. Alright, so while we're at it, let's talk about constructed leagues. And regardless of which format you're talking about, these all pretty much work the same, with the exception of commander constructed leagues. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this, but basically prize support is determined by the participants voting on various things like who they thought had the best deck. And frankly, it seems like it's very incentivized to vote for yourself. So all in all, it ends up being kind of a losing possibility here as far as advancing your economic growth within the client. Now, that having been said, all of the other constructed formats, standard, pioneer, the modern, legacy, even vintage, are all supported on MTG Online. Each of them cost 100 play points, and of course you have to have a constructed deck. At 0 and 1 win, you get nothing back. You basically just burned 100 play points. At 2 wins, however, you at least get back half of your entry, 50 play points. At 3 wins, you get your full entry back plus something that is called a treasure chest booster, and we will talk about that in a few minutes. At 4 wins, you get 120 play points plus 5 treasure chest boosters. And of course, if you go a perfect 5 wins in the league, you get 150 play points, 11 treasure chest boosters, and a competitive trophy that you 5-0'd the event. Once again, winning 3, 4, or 5 have some championship series entry things going on there that may have some value for people interested in higher levels of play, but mostly I'm doing this analysis based on play points and treasure chests accumulated. I said a few minutes ago, standard, I don't think MTG Online is the place to do this. But there are some very good formats that we are going to talk about in just a moment that I think are perfect for free-to-play players to focus on as they both try and win in the short term and grow their collections and options in the long term. But first, what the hell is a treasure chest anyway? Well, I'm so glad I asked. You see, a treasure chest is special prize support found only on MTG Online. It basically will contain 4 things. The first 3 are variable slots for, well, cards added to your collection. The last slot is a fixed amount of play points, generally about 5, but of course some of those variable slots can sometimes convert over into play points. The bottom line here is each one of these treasure chests are worth about 2 tickets or about $2 US, depending upon your local currency. You see, all of the prize support that we've been talking about in this video thus far, be it treasure chest or individual booster packs, these are what we call tradable assets. And that's a good thing because very much like real world Magic, buying and opening packs in hopes of getting specific cards and building up your collection is, well, for the suckers, okay? The thing you want to do here when you earn treasure chests or boosters through your play experience is you want to go to one of the many online shops available through various retailers, and you want to sell those tradable assets for event tickets, which is kind of like a $1 currency piece. Then instead of opening a pack and maybe getting stuff that you don't want, you can instead use your event ticket credit value to buy cards you want to use directly and just stop dealing with all the crap. Now, don't get me wrong. You can open up these packs. You might win the lottery and get a $20 card. But all in all, mathematically, you are better off selling these unopened assets and buying the cards that you want and need directly. Just to give an example, currently any current pack sells in the online Wizards of the Coast store for about $4 US. But various online retailers buy and sell these packs generally for considerably less. These packs also tend to go down in value over time, depending upon what the expected value of opening them is. So buying packs from Wizards directly, not the best economic option. And my recommendation is to take any packs that you win and sell them essentially as quickly as possible to get the highest return on those. You'll also notice that like some of these packs are selling for like 44 cents. It's still not worth buying the pack. Buy the cards you want, not the packs. It's like investing versus buying lottery tickets. It's just not the same thing. All right, now let's shift gears and talk about some of these formats that I think are very good for free-to-play players looking to use the Magic the Gathering online client. First thing I think people need to be aware of and look for are community-run events. These are most often free, but supported by vendor ticket credits. And some even offer door prizes. So if you didn't win, you still might get like $1 credit with somebody, which remember, cards for MTG Online are very cheap. You could buy an immense amount of commons and uncommons for budget decks just for a $1 door prize credit. Perhaps the most prolific of these community-run events is a format called Penny Dreadful. And the too long didn't read version of this is it's a 60-card constructed deck. The primary caveat is no card in the deck can cost more than 2 cents in the MTG Online economy. And before you run away screaming, remember, cards here are super cheap. Typically, your commons and uncommons are fractions of pennies. So this 2 cent not only includes a ton of rares, but very often mythics as well. There are some independent sites running these. There are some learning curves involved, which honestly I think is like the biggest hurdle to entry here. I do think it's worth learning. I think it's worth understanding the format, getting behind it, and starting to build some decks. Now, while this may seem like the perfect format to start investing your hard-earned online resources, I would have to caution against that, because that 2-cent barrier is a hard, fast barrier. And what can very easily happen is a deck becomes more popular and more played, the cards around it become more expensive, and all of a sudden you have cards that were really only played in Penny Dreadful because of a low price now aren't playable in Penny Dreadful, and you may end up having cards that aren't played anywhere that now you essentially have to sell, potentially for less than what you paid for it. Because of course, online stores only give you a fraction, often half, of what they expect to resell the card for. So maybe don't put your assets directly into Penny Dreadful playable cards and decks. Instead, this is a perfect place to make great use of those free loan programs. At the time that I was doing my research, I was finding these for mana traders, and I believe card hoarders was the other one. If you put these two things together, you can borrow about 11 tickets worth of cards at any given time. And when you're thinking about a budget Dreadful deck Penny Dreadful deck, you're talking about a deck that is maybe 50 cents, maybe $1 could happen. In fact, I'm not even sure that's true. I think maybe that can't happen. But this is the kind of thing you want to do, because you can borrow 5, 6 of these decks at any given time, practice with them, learn to play them, enter into events. And if the economy starts fluctuating and a deck either falls out of favor, or maybe the economy starts to move against you, you just give the cards back and borrow another deck and repeat as needed, all the while hopefully building up your own assets and investing those in other more lucrative formats. The other format that I think is absolutely fantastic for us free-to-play players is, of course, Pauper. And that's going to be the focus of my next MTG on a line focused video. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts of the format, talk about what I think are the very best decks and cards to invest in as free-to-play players with Magic the Gathering Online, and of course also those occasional arena events. And of course we're going to touch on some of Gavin's recent musings that brought about some critical bans for the format. Really just one card, but it affected a lot of decks. So be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and that way you are sure to be on board when we talk about Pauper. And before we go, I want to take just a moment to thank my totally awesome patrons for supporting me and allowing me to apply my passion into a community. And of course, before we go, I've got some suggestions for your next step.